Now, the New Zealand First Board is meeting today to discuss who might form the next government. National could govern with New Zealand First alone, but Labour has to bring in both New Zealand First and the Greens to form a government. Well, with us now in the Wellington studio, the National Party leader, Bill English. Good morning.
Good morning, Susie.
Have coalition talks finished?
No, they haven't finished. We've had policy meetings on policy all through the week, I think 8 or 9 meetings. There's been further discussion about policy issues over the weekend. There are still a number of issues relating to the formation of a government that haven't yet been discussed. So while New Zealand First are having a discussion today, they won't be dealing with completed agreements because there's still outstanding issues.
Over the weekend, are you meaning that New Zealand First were coming to National and asking for clarification around certain points?
Yes, that's right.
What is it that still needs to be decided?
Well, there would still need to be discussion about the nature of the governing arrangement, ministerial positions, the way that parties would interact. So those discussions are still ahead of us. We'll be looking to get a proposition that we could put to our caucus and our board in the same way that New Zealand First are having a discussion today. So
the discussion that New Zealand First is having today, what is your understanding of exactly what the decision is that could come out of that? Is it essentially a preferred candidate, if you like?
Well, they are free to make that kind of decision at any time, so it's really a matter for their process and how they're dealing with it. Bear in mind that they have to deal with a much more complicated situation than we do. We're negotiating as one party with New Zealand First. We can make decisions on the spot if that's required. They are dealing with us, but they'll also have to deal with a more complex set of circumstances with Labour and the Greens. OK,
so for example, the New Zealand First Board meets today. But there may not be a government decision today or indeed tomorrow, because in that case they would have to go back to perhaps yourselves or perhaps Labour and the Greens and hammer out further aspects of this deal like ministerial positions.
Well, that's quite possible, that's right, because a number of those issues have not been dealt with. New Zealand First may be forming a view about those today. I'd expect that it would be part of the discussions. We've put some propositions to them. So we'll just see.
Around ministerial posts?
Well, no, not particular about that actually, but just around a framework for thinking about how a governing arrangement could work. We've had 3 different governing arrangements ourselves, so we're able to have some views about what would apply in these circumstances because they're different than any previous coalition.
Are you anticipating New Zealand First to have cabinet posts if it is going to be a national-led government that they support?
I wouldn't anticipate anything in particular. We've only discussed policy matters so far, and of course those are quite important because any smaller party in this situation would want to get policy positions clarified to ensure that once a government's formed, their influence on policy remains in place because it's been agreed. So that's a perfectly logical way to go about it. It's just that it doesn't complete the process.
Considering there were talks all of last week, there's obviously been more clarification going on over the weekend. Is your understanding that this could be a situation where a deal has been done with Labour and the Greens and that National is essentially being left out?
Well, it's possible, I suppose.
Possible or probable?
Well, it's possible. The way Mr Peters has tended to deal with this is to be pretty even-handed in who he meets with and how he meets with them and so on. But look, that's really a matter for him and New Zealand First. We come to this negotiation with 56 seats in the Parliament, significantly the largest party. That's reflected in the weight of discussion about the policies so far, but there are still matters that need to be completed.
How long do you anticipate this taking to be hammered out?
Well, it depends on the will to get to a closure on it, to actually get to a completed agreement.
But what assurances do you have or have you sought from New Zealand First about when this process will be finished?
Well, we're not relying on or seeking particular assurances. We want to make sure that a full process is gone through in order to get something that we can put to our caucus and our board.
Do you anticipate a government this week?
I would expect so, yes.
But perhaps not necessarily today or tomorrow?
Look, that's going to be a matter for discussion. I mean, sometimes things you think will be straightforward turn out not to be. Other things turn out to be much more straightforward. So I wouldn't want to put we're not putting deadlines on it. We certainly want to get on and get the process completed. I think the public are expecting the formation of a government pretty shortly.
Winston Peters did put a deadline on it, though, didn't he? Are you surprised he didn't stick to that self-imposed date of October the 12th?
Well, it wasn't a deadline we put on it, and given the process as it's unfolded, in retrospect looks a bit optimistic if you're going to have intensive policy discussions with the National Party on one hand, Labour and the Greens, and a more complicated discussion on the other hand, and expect to get that all done in a few days. That didn't turn out that way, but look, this process is moving along. Effectively, it's been going for about a week, given that New Zealand First and the Labour and the Greens basically said it wouldn't need to start until the special votes were counted, which is just over a week ago. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Bill English, leader of the National Party, at 28 minutes to 8.
Coming up before 8 on Morning Report, staff and NZME go to court today to try to overturn the Commerce Commission's refusal to allow them to merge. Mental health patients are into the great potato shortage. Now the headlines with Nicola Wright.
The National Party leader Bill English says discussions continued over